Hallo, herzlich willkommen hier von der Budi-Bühne. Ich habe mir den Ilias an meine Seite geholt. Wir sprechen nämlich jetzt noch über einen der potenziellen Blockbuster 2019, nämlich
The Division 2, das neue Spiel von Ubisoft.
Richtig.
Kommt bald raus und wir haben einen Experten da. Im Grunde den besten Experten, den man eigentlich haben kann.
Ja, und um uns mit dem unterhalten zu können, machen wir das Ganze natürlich jetzt wieder auf Englisch.
Ja.
Das kennt ihr hier aus den Streams. Hi there, thanks for coming.
Hi guys.
Could you do a short introduction who you are and
Sure.
What's your job on The Division 2?
So my name is Chadi Zibaoui and I'm Associate Creative Director on The Division 2.
All right, Charlie, this is the first day of Gamescom. Tell us, how are you doing? How's Gamescom so far? I think it was a pretty rough day for the first time.
Yeah, I mean it's gamescom, you know, so it has been a busy day, but also a very exciting day. You know, the opportunity to share more details about our game with people who care about it. So that has been a good day.
How many presentations did you give to the press today?
I think 7 or 8.
7 or
Wow.
8?
Yeah.
And you had to tell the same thing over and over again?
Yes, but you know, every time is an opportunity to perfect it and add more details. So
Perfect.
that's,
So this is the perfect ground for this interview.
For those in our audience who might not be totally familiar with The Division, could you give us a short summary of what the franchise actually is?
Sure. So Division and Division 2 are a cover-based shooter at their core. So that's the core of the gameplay. It's an online RPG as well. So it's a game where you will start with a low-level character and you will need to progress him, acquiring gears and new weapons throughout the game. And regarding the context, it's set in Washington, D.C., Division 2, 7 months after the events of the first game, where a deadly virus was released in Manhattan, causing lots of deaths. And basically, you are an agent of the Division, which is an organization of sleeper agents that have been super trained, and they are the last resort once the first responders, such as the army, the firemen, the police, when they fail to contain situation, that's when the Division is activated.
All right. I've been to a presentation this afternoon, the kind of presentations that you did today, which very much focused on the new setting, which is Washington, D.C., and there also was a new trailer released alongside with this. And probably, it's because it's not too long, we're going to take a look at the trailer. Ilias, could you fire it off?
Sure.
Von all den Hauptstädten in all den Ländern dieser Erde war keine vorsichtiger, keine sicherer, keine besser vorbereitet. War es Selbstgefälligkeit? Pech?
Ja.
Oder war es etwas viel Heimtückischeres? Aber eins steht außer Frage. Wir schlagen jetzt zurück. Das ist der entscheidende Moment. Wenn wir versagen, zerfällt die Nation. Wir sind die letzte Verteidigungslinie der freien Welt.
All right, that's the new trailer for The Division 2. Chadi, what has happened in the 7 months which went by after the first Division game, and why did you go from New York to Washington now?
All right. So during those 7 months, one of the major differences between the first game and this one is that after the events of the Division, people were really reacting to the situation. They didn't know how to deal with that new normal, and they were left mostly defenseless. Now, 7 months after, the situation is very different, and the people who managed to survive, now they started to bend into communities, settlement, building rooftop gardens, water collection systems, everything that they need to survive. So that's basically what happened. They're trying to survive, but you know, in those kind of situations, you have those people who are trying to rebuild society, and you have people who are trying to take advantage of it. So those same civilians are struggling because of the factions that are trying to rule the streets, and that's one of your major call to action is to go there and to help those civilians to rebuild society as we know it.
You mentioned...
And you had a second part in your question.
Yeah, sure.
Why we chose DC? So there are multiple reasons, but one of them was really about variety. So Manhattan was a gorgeous recreation, but it really had only two different environments, residential and commercial. But with Washington, if you know the city, it's very varied, and we are going to be able to leverage 6 different environments in the game. And this is not only visual variety, but it's also adding to the overall experience the kind of activities that you will find in different parts of the city. It's also another reason was we wanted to contrast with the first game, with the harsh winter and the snow that we featured in Manhattan. And by moving the timeline 7 months ahead in Washington, we can really take advantage of the very hot and humid summers Washington is known for. I have more on top of that. So those 7 months are not only for the visual, it's also for us an opportunity to explore a new side of the crisis, a new side of our universe. So what I just told you, from people reacting to the situation to people really trying to, okay, now we accept the situation, we need to move on, how do we rebuild things? So these were a very strong reason for that choice. And finally, on a narrative standpoint, Agents of the Division reports to the President of the United States. So for us, it was natural that our next move would be into the seat of US power. We really saw a lot of narrative opportunities, a lot of opportunities with the mysteries that are around Washington, what Washington sparkles in people's mind. And all of the icons, of course, a lot of iconic landmarks, a lot of people know about them even though they've never been there. So these are some of the major reasons behind our choice.
If you take a look at Washington and New York and compare them, I mean, New York, especially Washington, consists mainly of very narrow streets. In Washington, if you go to Washington, you have a lot of open spaces and wide areas. Wasn't it kind of like hard or difficult for you guys to take the same gameplay and fit it in a totally different environment that probably allows for much less cover and stuff like that? How did you make that fit with the gameplay?
No, that's a very good point, and that was indeed one of the challenges that we identified from the very first day. But that was also an exciting challenge because the result of it is really adding to the overall experience. And as you said, fighting into those narrow streets will be different than fighting in that wide open areas where you have bigger line of sight, you maybe have less cover, you can approach enemies from every direction, but they can also approach you from every direction. So it's really... to me, it's something that is adding to the existing experience rather than drastically. We didn't need to change the gameplay. We needed to adapt, of course, but it's really about variety.
Probably for our viewers to get an impression of what the city actually looks like in the game. I think you guys brought some B-roll footage.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of like 2 or 3 minutes showing what the city looks like, to kind of support what you just said. During the presentation that you guys are giving, I saw that you're working with like real photos of the city, and that you guys put something on there which you call the division layer to kind of like make it look like the decayed and destroyed and dirty city. That's really interesting. How are you guys going with that and developing that division layer?
So. Basically, if you want to build a world that is believable, everything has to make sense and feel connected. And as you said, we're doing a lot of research to make that happen. So it's not only pictures, or it is pictures, but it is picture that we were lucky enough to shoot on site. So we sent a lot of people to Washington, people who are actually building the game today, because that's really the only way that you can feel the city, send the smell, meet with the people. We've met with experts as well, disaster experts, policemen, all the first responders, to understand how they think they would cope with that situation. And this is what helps us add that division layer, as you say, which is the logic of those events and the 7 months that has passed since day one.
I find it really interesting that you guys put so much effort into creating a recreation of the actual city, because I think the game is kind of like very fictional, you know. There's nothing like the Division in real life, and the fight that's going on there. It's a very it's not a realistic game. Still, you guys go and say we want to do a perfect recreation of the city. Do you think that on a certain level that influences the quality of the game, or what are you trying to achieve by being so precise about this recreation?
I think it's key to bring in even more quality to the game, because we start with a one-to-one recreation, which is something that we're able to do with the improvements that were done to Snowdrop. So we're actually using real-world data to build the streets, the building placements. We have the exact location of trees, street signs. So all that layer that would take months for artists to build up can be done very quickly. And to answer your question, what it adds to the quality is that our designers or artists, they can truly focus on that transformation layer. You know, instead, those months that they would have spent just to recreate the streets, the exact location of everything, it would have been time that they wouldn't have spent into transforming the city, telling those stories. And the other aspect of that for us is that one-to-one recreation is one of our art direction pillars, and we call it virtual tourism. It allows you to really experience the city, of course with that layer, but you will still be able to see where are the main icons, the main landmarks, visit them. And today, if you know your way in Washington, D.C., you know your way in the game. So that can be something useful. And the other way around works as well. If you play the game and then go to Washington, you know, you'll have a feeling of already knowing, oh, okay, I know where that landmark is, I know how to get there.
How much of the actual city did you recreate for the game? Also compared to the first Division, is the virtual Washington bigger than the virtual New York?
Yeah, it is. It's actually 20% bigger. So I don't have the exact numbers of superficie, but you take what we did in Manhattan, all of the map of Manhattan, and we've expanded it 20% bigger. Actually, when you want to recreate Washington, you quickly realize that you have the Capitol on one side, and you have the Lincoln Memorial on the other side, and you can't cut one of those. So it already kind of sets the width of the map that you have to build.
You mentioned kind of like the narrative interest that are there in implementing the White House and the mysterious that's surrounding this kind of building. What is kind of like your goal towards the narrative design of the second game? I think that's something that you guys are working on as well, right?
So, on the narrative standpoint, as I said, it's mostly trying to picture how that in that scenario, how people will try to, you know, not just give up and try to fight against the situation and really get back on their feet. So it's really, for us, Division 2 is more about hope and rebuilding society, and how if those civilians work together, they can make a change, even though they still need the help of the Division agents, because the threats out there are quite high, of course.
Obviously, multiplayer plays a key part in the Division. Can you give us an overview about the opportunities we have in playing together or against each other?
Sure. So, as you said, multiplayer is key to the Division. So from day one, we're going to ship the game with a lot of content for both players who don't want to play multiplayer. If you want to play solo, you can play solo. If you want to play co-op, but not against other players, you can play the same exact adventure. And of course, we cater all of our players, and there will be PvP activities from day one. There will be Dark Zone, of course. The Dark Zone will come back. And something that is very exciting for us is that for the first time, we're introducing an 8-player raid, which will be the highest challenge of them all. So get ready for some nice challenge there.
What are you trying to do with Dark Zone? I can remember that the matches in Dark Zone was pretty intense. Are you trying to do something different in Division 2, or is it basically the same experience that we had in Division 1?
So what really worked in the Dark Zone was the tension that it created.
Yeah, definitely.
So this will still be here. Now, you know, it's been 2 years, more than 2 years that we released the game. we've been able to listen to community feedback about it, to see what people like, didn't like, and during the live phase, we started to experiment with it. In the latest update, we changed a few things in the Dark Zone. Now, all those learnings will help us to deliver a revamped experience in the Dark Zone, but we'll have much more details about, we'll communicate the exact details later.
How do you like to play a Division? Are you more a single-player guy, or do you like to play co-op?
I would say that I usually... I start solo,
okay.
and then I join with my friend. Because it really brings another layer of strategy when you start playing with other players. Especially now, we're also introducing. When you reach level 30, we're introducing the specialization, which will allow you to perfect even more your playstyle, and that will really create even more opportunities for team play. Much more synergies between the different players.
All right.
I want to get back to one thing I forgot to ask when we were talking about that it's playing 7 months after the first game. I guess that kind of like resources have become very scarce in this world. There should be a need for food, for water, for everything.
Yes.
Is that something that's affecting the gameplay as well? Kind of like fighting for actual, I don't know, supply crates or whatever is a part of the game?
Yep. So you're right in that situation. 7 months after, resources are super scarce, and that's the gold in those kind of situation. And everyone left in Washington D.C. will be fighting for it. So there will be resource location, there will be control points in the city, and both civilians and enemy factions will be roaming the cities dynamically in search for those resources. So it's the narrative side of things, but in terms of activities, what it creates is also a dynamic situation where a player can decide to engage or not to help those civilians on their way while exploring the world.
All right.
All right. The First Division is a game that is liked by so many people, especially after the support the game got over the last couple of months. Is there something that you want to do different in Division 2, or will it be the same core experience that we get with Division 1? Can we expect something different, something completely new in Division 2? So, gameplay-wise especially.
Yeah. We're building on strong foundations now after 2 years and all the updates that we've done. We think that we have a very strong foundation. So the core experience, it's still a cover shooter RPG at its core. Now we're bringing in new tools, new skills. The specialization I just mentioned is something that really is going to add depth when you reach the end of the campaign. And this is also another new side of things. Like the campaign will blend in smoothly into what we call the end game, but there will be some narrative twist that will renew the interest. The raid, the 8-player raid, is also something very new compared to the first game.
Can you give us a little bit more insight about the feedback you get with Division 1 and you want to implement in Division 2? Is there some element that is frequently asked by the community, especially because Division is a service game and it gets even bigger and bigger and bigger with time?
So I think the first thing that we identified in the early days of the launch was the focus that we have to put on endgame. So since the very first day of development on the Division 2, we really had endgame first in mind, which led to what I just told you, an experience that blends into the endgame and that will propel smoothly players into that part of the game. The other one of the other points was the variety. A lot of players wanted more variety in terms of environment and in terms of ambience. So that's also a reason why we moved to Washington during summer. And then after that, of course, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff regarding the gear, regarding the RPG progression system that we're keep on improving, and we're really want all players to feel comfortable jumping into that side of the game. So it's something that we are looking at very closely. I mean, it's the core of the experience, so it has to play very smooth.
Cool.
All right, Chadi, thank you very much for coming, for all the information that you've shared about the Division 2. It's going to be out on March 15th next year,
Yes,
right?
March 15, 2019, on Xbox One, Xbox One X, PS4, PS4 Pro and PC.
Alright,
Perfect.
Thanks for coming. Das war unsere Vorstellung von Division 2. Vielen Dank an Ilias, vielen Dank an Chadi und jetzt viel Spaß mit dem restlichen Programm. Tschüss.